Hi, and thanks for watching this message video. And don't forget to go through the life lesson that comes with it. And for those who can't make a Sunday, don't forget that there's a podcast of the sermon that goes with this message video and the life lesson. Today we're going through Isaiah chapters 48 through 50. And for those who have already read it, you know that chapter 48 is basically a recap of a lot of things that have just happened. And that in chapters 49 and 50, well, there's a lot more of God's frustration with his people that's being explained. But you also know that there's some kind of a significant change in that Isaiah seems to be speaking on behalf of Jesus, who is reminiscing about a conversation had with God the Father. Here's what Isaiah wrote. Isaiah 49, 1 through 3. Listen to me, all you in distant lands. Pay attention, you who are far away. The Lord called me before my birth. From within the womb, he called me by name. He made my words of judgment as sharp as a sword. He has hidden me in the shadow of his hand. I am like a sharp arrow in his quiver. He said to me, You are my servant, Israel, and you will bring me glory. Again, this is Jesus who is speaking, and Isaiah is writing it. And the very first thing that he wanted everybody, literally all nations of all people to understand is that he has been called to a very specific purpose, and that purpose is to judge. He literally mentions that his words are going to have like a sword effect or a cutting effect. And this is consistent with what John the Apostle has written in the book of Revelation. For those of you who have not read that, there, Jesus describes through John that he not only has all authority, but that he is going to be given or has been given that authority to judge all people, literally everything. Or in other words, he gets to choose who dies and who lives. Revelation 1, 12 through 18. When I turned to see who was speaking to me, I saw 7 gold lampstands. And standing in the middle of the lampstands was someone like the Son of Man. He was wearing a long robe with a gold sash across his chest. His head and his hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like flames of fire. His feet were like polished bronze refined in a furnace, and his voice thundered like mighty ocean waves. He held 7 stars in his right hand, and a sharp 2-edged sword came from his mouth, and his face was like the sun in all its brilliance. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as if I were dead, but he laid his right hand on me and said, Don't be afraid. I am the first and the last. I am the living one. I died, but look, I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys of death and the grave. So again, way back in the time of Isaiah, you could say that God was giving every nation fair warning that a part of the role of the Messiah was to be a judge over all humanity. But we also know through Isaiah that another huge part of the role of the Messiah was to teach a group of people his mysterious plan for all of the nations, this redemptive plan. However, for those who know that part of the New Testament story, when Jesus came, those disciples, they didn't grasp this. They didn't understand that the message wasn't just for the Jews and that it was for all of the nations. And so when we understand that disappointment perhaps at Jesus' death, it makes this part of what Isaiah wrote about that point in time coming in the future make a little bit more sense. Isaiah 49, 4 through 6. I replied, But my work seems so useless. I have spent my strength for nothing and to no purpose. Yet I leave it all in the Lord's hand. I will trust God for my reward. And now the Lord speaks, the one who formed me in my mother's womb to be his servant, who commissioned me to bring Israel back to him. The Lord has honored me, and my God has given me strength. He says, You will do more than restore the people of Israel to me. I will make you a light to the Gentiles, and you will bring my salvation to the ends of the earth. Jesus seemed frustrated. And the truth is I have seen or met, I've known a lot of people who, whether it's at the end of a big ministry event, or maybe at the end of a season of work or of ministry, or maybe even at the end of a ministry career, many of them have expressed this same kind of frustration, just like Jesus, that they felt like their work was useless. And let's face it, when many of us get frustrated with serving or feel like we're not making a difference, we either stop serving altogether or we take our frustrations out on others or to others. And when we do this, it's bad for everyone. Instead, what we should do is what Jesus did, which is take his frustration to God in prayer. And notice what God did for him when he did that was he He reassured him. He told him, no, no, no. In fact, your work for me is very effective. It's going to do more than what you maybe grasped or understood. You're going to reach all of the Gentiles for me. And a part of the reason why Jesus was obviously capable of doing this is because God had empowered him through his Spirit to do what he had specifically called him to do. And God is empowering you and I through that same Spirit to do exactly what it is that he has called us to do. And Jesus spoke about this same thing through Isaiah. Isaiah 50:4-7. The sovereign Lord has given me his words of wisdom so that I know how to comfort the weary. Morning by morning he wakens me and opens my understanding to his will. The sovereign Lord has spoken to me, and I have listened. I have not rebelled or turned away. I offered my back to those who beat me, and my cheeks to those who pulled out my beard. I did not hide my face from mockery and spitting. Because the sovereign Lord helps me, I will not be disgraced. Therefore, I have set my face like a stone, determined to do his will, and I know that I will not be put to shame. The wisdom that Jesus spoke of is exactly what it is that we need to be able to effectively do God's will. And notice that the wisdom that God gives is not like some download where now we've got everything that we need for our life. No, it's more like it's maybe a moment-to-moment or a day-to-day thing. So in other words, those who don't ask God for wisdom on a daily basis are essentially embracing a lifestyle of spiritual idiocy and will find themselves constantly wondering what God's will is. And let's not forget that the reason why God gives wisdom in the first place was so that we could comfort those who were weary, not necessarily from carrying something physical, but something emotional or maybe even something spiritual. That's what's made them weary. So in other words, the reason why God gives us wisdom is not for self-serving purposes, meaning if our understanding of the Bible or about the things of God doesn't translate into a desire to comfort others, then any attempt to share our knowledge will be annoying. And it might even possibly repel them away from us or away from God. And the truth is I've done this, and I know that many other people who are followers of Christ have done this. But when Jesus starts to change us, and we start to realize that this whole thing of wisdom is not about us, it's about others, we stop becoming annoying. We stop becoming self-motivated, and we really do become the kind of people who can be empowered by God to be a help to them. And it's the reason why is because we're starting to understand what it means to be loving like God, which is why Paul, the apostle, said this. 1 Corinthians 13:1-2. If I could speak all the languages of earth and of angels, but didn't love others, I would only be a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I had the gift of prophecy, and if I understood all of God's secret plans and possessed all knowledge, and if I had such faith that I could move mountains, but didn't love others, I would be nothing. Love is the most important thing that Jesus ever talked about in all of his messages to others, and it is the most important thing that he ever demonstrated for others. And as Isaiah spoke of, the way that he demonstrated it was he allowed for his back to be beaten by the people that he loved. He allowed for his beard to be pulled out by the people that he loved. He allowed for the spitting and the mockery. These are the things that he knew that he was called to endure, and so he prayed for wisdom on a daily basis to be able to have this. These are the things that we are supposed to be doing too, because ultimately, you and I have also been called, just like Jesus, to be this individual who will help others understand what God has done. In fact, look at what it is that we're told. John 15:18-20. If the world hates you, remember that it hated me first. The world would love you as one of its own if you belonged to it, but you are no longer part of the world. I chose you to come out of the world, so it hates you. Do you remember what I told you? A slave is not greater than the master. Since they persecuted me, naturally, they will persecute you. And if they had listened to me, they would listen to you. Now, Jesus wasn't stating that every single one of us are going to face persecution and suffering, but there is a very distinct possibility that when you and I are attempting to show love to others, that there are going to be some who are a part of this world who are not going to appreciate it, even though what we are attempting to do is something that is good. So, what have we learned today? Well, hopefully what we've learned is that Jesus, the Messiah, a part of the reason why God sent him was to be a judge over all humanity. And yes, a part of that has already been accomplished, but he is still yet to fulfill that entire role. Judgment is coming. And because of that, we also need to remember that much like in Isaiah, or really any other prophet, that we too are being sent by God to his people, to the people that he loves, to warn them that if they place their faith and their trust in the Messiah, in the Son of God, then they will escape this judgment that is coming. And that truly is something that Jesus wants every single one of his followers to know and understand, is that just like him, he has now sent us into this world. John 17:13-18. Now I am coming to you. I told them many things while I was with them in this world, so they would be filled with my joy. I have given them your word, and the world hates them because they do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but to keep them safe from the evil one. They do not belong to this world any more than I do. Make them holy by your truth. Teach them your word, which is truth. Just as you sent me into the world, I am sending them into the world.